Hey everyone, long time no see. So I'm trying something a little different today and I hope it goes well. Today I'm going to be talking about the TGR Jane V2 ME. Monokei and TGR have collaborated to bring us a slightly new iteration of a keep culture classic. Now there's no doubt you've heard of the TGR Jane if you've been in this hobby for long enough. Now hearing about the board, you tend to start to think, how good can it be? Who would spend so much money on this? Well, there is a reason why it is called the Great Rectangle. Now I won't really be talking about the specs here because that information is going to be on their listing and I'll link that below. Now I didn't buy this board myself and I won it in the raffle and everything, so this isn't sponsored at all. This is just my personal opinion. So the build I went with is the soldered build and I got an extra FR4 plate and did the O-ring mount. Now the FR4 plate comes extra. You have to get that added on because the default is polycarbonate. And instead of O-ring mount, you can also do top mounted. The board supports both based on your preference, but I went with O-ring mount because that is my favorite style. With this said, I want to talk more about my experience with this board. I got it right here. Let me take a look at the back. Shiny. When I first got into this hobby, doing the research on the best board and what switches to get, I came across several videos. One of which was Shoop's video about the keyboard rabbit hole, and I'll link the specific one below. But he talks about the TGR Jane and how expensive it is and how could this board be that good? From there, I just kept hearing about it. How expensive it is, how good it is, how bad people want one, and up until now I've told myself I'm never gonna get one of these. It's just a rectangle. There isn't anything super interesting when you see it online, and I'm sure there are boards that are just as good for less, but boy was I wrong. Sort of. There are plenty of boards that are as good for the similar price range. And a big thing about how much you enjoy a board is going to come down to personal preference. With that in mind, I had heard that Monokei and TGR were going to collaborate to create a new take on some older iconic boards, one of which was the Jane V2 ME. Now I wasn't really sure if I wanted to spend that much money on something like this, but my curiosity got the best of me, and I'm really glad that it did. I ended up entering the raffle and won. Now the keyboard arrived and it just kind of sat there for a while. I left it in the box on the floor in my room and just looked at it every now and then. And I wasn't really super eager to build it. Then a friend that was also into the hobby came to visit and I decided to open it up to show him. And when I first saw it, I suddenly knew. I had never been so excited to build a board. This board is absolutely beautiful in all its simplicity, and finally I understood why it's so iconic. I lubed these switches as fast and carefully as I could and I began building it. Now when I first started typing on the board after I finished building it, I wasn't really sure how to feel, but as I kept using it, I began enjoying it more and more. It sounded and felt so incredibly clean. Now it's hard to explain what I mean by that. A lot of boards tend to have a sort of sound or a feel every now and then while you're typing, and it bothers you, it makes you want to do something, change it, or just swap keyboards, and I've never felt that with this keyboard. This keyboard is incredibly consistent, and because of that I almost never want to stop using it. Now the board isn't perfect. There's things about it that do bother me. Not a lot though. First is that you need the tool to pry this open. And it is hard to see, but there's a little slot that you can fit the tool in here that I had a problem finding and isn't really clear in the instructions. The second thing is that you need two different bits to take apart the board, and they don't include those for you. So that is a little bit frustrating, but that's all a part of the build. The user experience is fantastic. So why am I making this video? I wanted to just share my experience with this. It was eye-opening, and I learned that although some things are just hype, there are things that are genuinely spectacular for a reason. That focusing on quality and making sure that your users have a product that's better than they expected really shows. There'll also be continuing drops like this and of other iconic boards like the 910 in the future, so I recommend following Monokei for any updates or news on future drops. Thanks so much for watching this video and sharing this eye-opening experience with me. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys stay squared. Here's the sound test.